I'm on the wrong clock here.
Good evening. It's 6:30. I'll call the meeting to order, and the only item on the agenda is the ERP software. So Ted, take it away.
There we go. Before we start that, I'll tell you, I was sitting with Marty, our public works director, at the holiday lunch for the staff, and he said they installed the new grinder pump in the lift station on Rock Road. So we passed that I guess a month ago or so. So that's all in, and we're good. We're off secondary pumps. So
Good.
Just wanted to update the council on that. Tonight we're going to talk about the ERP system that we work on. I'm going to call on Brian Mackey. He's kind of our expert and has been helping us. Do you want me to give the overview? You want to do the overview? Get me started. Okay. Well, there we go. What we're going to go through tonight is pretty dense, but we'll talk through it all, and hopefully everybody comes out with an understanding. I'm going to give a real quick what our current condition is. Of course, Bel Aire was incorporated in 1980. Always had a small staff. My favorite story, Tristan, when she was down at the front desk, she used to have to take the cordless phone in the bathroom because no one else was there to answer the phone at City Hall. So if you understand, that's kind of where we started and where we're at today. Paper forms, written journal entries, all through 1980 to probably about 2000. We bought the current system we have right now. And to kind of understand, when you say you have a computer system, well, you have a database pretty much that you enter information into, and it organizes that information. So a lot of our city from 1980 to 2017 was ran on paper forms and manual entry. When I started here, we still ran 2 tapes every day. If anybody doesn't know what that is, you calculate all your checks and run a tape, and then you run another tape. That's pretty old school method, which is fine. But that's kind of where we started in 2016, 2017. We had no really online customer service where it's a do it yourself up until 2018. And then to go from 2018 to today, we still have that small staff. We implemented some add-ons to our aging system that allows for instead of manually entering all kinds of credit card numbers into our system. And when I say not numbers, not your card numbers, but you make an online payment, we see $100. So we print a report, see a bunch of $100, and then we have to enter it into our system because the computer or the credit card system wasn't talking to our database system. So in about 2018, we put a system in between those 2 systems so they can communicate. That's pretty much what we have, is a network of systems that are tied to our aging ERP system that make it work. Online forms such as just standard sign up form, those are just front facing. They print out a paper sheet, and a clerk has to go in and enter the name and enter it into our system. So there's no way to someone to go online, say, hey, I'm a new resident, I want to sign up for water. It looks like that they're entering it, but all it does is print a piece of paper for us to enter manually into a system. So that's where we're currently at today. And that's why I kind of said we went from no online customer to kind of a Bronze Age customer service. So that's kind of where we're at in the line. And this kind of illustrates a little bit what I'm talking about. If you ever worked in a corporate environment, you usually run off, it's called an ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning System. And we're stuck at about 2000, from my estimate, from about 2000 to 2002, that style of system. So when you usually sign up a provider, they'll do research and development, and they'll upgrade their systems and a lot of different things. But our current system just simply couldn't keep up, or is still working on trying to keep up. And that's where struggles are, is we want to do all these online facing systems, but we have to end up hiring more systems to make them talk together. We live in a world with Amazon, Target, Evergy, and AI. This is very prevalent with if you've ever paid a bill to Evergy or Kansas Gas. Their systems are online is a lot more robust and than ours. And I kind of did a side by side up there where really all you can do right now is sign up online and you can see your balance of your account. And any transaction history that you put online. So it doesn't tie back to our system. What it does is we upload a file every day that shows the balance of your account. So it's really just a glorified type of form, online form. Along with some of the problems the current challenges we have with our current is, I said it multiple times already, manual entry is killing us. Staff dependent. Tristan's been here 13 years. I've been here 7. My lead utility clerk's been here 7. Our Lindsay, our court clerk's 8. Deb's about 4 or 5. That we're so dependent on me knowing the system, Tristan knowing the workarounds, because the best example is, why did we send 2 direct deposits the other day when we were doing payroll? It just so happened that we ran the direct deposit process at the same time one of our AP clerks ran a check batch. So if they do it at the same time, it locks it up and we end up having to revert to backup and then redoing it. And there's no way of starting the system over. So those types of problems, if we didn't have our years of experience in service, would cripple us, because then you're calling a support call, and that's one of our problems with the current provider. Is those support calls used to be an hour, now they're could be a day. What does that do? People might not be able to get paid if that's a problem. But luckily, we have a lot of staff dependency, as well as the little glitches. But again, I think I covered a little bit. But the customer portal and the expectations of our citizens. I don't know about you guys, but when I need a customer service for Amazon, I usually just open up the chat box, enter my question, and minimize it, and a representative gets a hold of me. How nice would that be for the city if we could make it work? Stuff like that is what the customer is starting to their expectations are growing to. I've touched on this a little bit with you guys, but why now? I've said our staff has kind of been living in what's important and what's urgent box of this matrix for about 2 years. And this has been scheduled for about 2 years. But what happens is this becomes important and urgent, where once it used to be a little less urgent. Hey, we'll get around to upgrading systems because that's a hard project. Let's get around to it. And now we're here. So I'm very excited to present this tonight. But that tends to be what happens to a lot of these types of issues is we drag our feet long as we can, and then eventually it becomes urgent and important. Again, like I said, I'm going to introduce Brian Mackey. We met over a phone call, and he has a wealth of knowledge. He's going to kind of run a lot of the analysis, because I think it's very beneficial for someone outside to come monitor our processes and give us an overview of where we're at today, where we're going tomorrow. So, Brian, if you want to.
Thanks, Ted. Yep. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you for letting me come here and speak tonight. I'm going to start first with probably the logical question you're all asking yourselves. Who is this guy and why should I care what he has to say? So the short answer is I've got 36 years of experience either building, selecting, implementing, managing large application software packages. It's pretty much what I've done all my entire career. I grew up out in Mays, then went to Hutch Community College, then off to K-State for a degree in computer science, got an MBA along the way while I was working. Started my career at Cerner up in Kansas City. They were a startup at the time, and they developed software packages that are essentially ERPs for hospitals. After that, like most people in the IT industry in Kansas City, I did a tour of duty at Sprint, actually one of their subsidiaries, and I ran all the internal IT applications for that company. We went through and the selection and implementation of several large packages, effectively an ERP for them, also a customer service system, as well as a big data warehouse and decision support system. I got recruited out of there to go work for a Silicon Valley software company called Informix, created database software, a competitor with Oracle at the time. And I ran all their internal IT applications. While I was there, we selected and implemented 4 major package software, one for the tech support organization. We implemented SAP for our financials. We implemented PeopleSoft for HR, and then a document management system called Documentum. Justin, I saw you kind of nodding. For most of you, if you don't know, SAP is probably the largest ERP vendor on the planet. They're notorious for projects that go over time and over budget.
Yeah.
I am one of the few people who can say my project came in on time and slightly under budget. So, and I'll talk later about some of the reasons why that happened and the lessons I learned from that I've tried to repeat. We got bought by IBM after that. And I spent probably the first half of my time at IBM running an enterprise architecture team. And if you don't know what those folks do in large organizations, they have portfolios of thousands of applications. And there's a lot of discussion about when do you consolidate applications? When do you keep them separate and pay for the interfaces so they talk? Because interfaces are expensive to maintain. We also got involved a lot in helping companies that were acquired integrate into IBM, leave their systems and come onto ours. After Informix, they purchased something on the order of 300 companies. And I was involved with a lot of them, helping them move off of their systems. And I got to see what they had for systems. Most of them were small to medium-sized companies. The second half of my tenure at IBM, I was effectively the CIO for IBM's marketing organization. I ran all of their marketing applications, as well as some of the sales applications. And there, the big projects were implementing a marketing automation platform, implementing a web content management system, master data management system, so we could uniquely identify individuals that we were working with, and then finally a live chat platform. After that, I ran product management for a CRM vendor. If you don't want to know what CRMs are, those are applications used for marketing, sales, and customer service teams, so you can track everything that you have with your interactions with your customers. When I retired, it was time to leave New York and come back to where I grew up, and I chose Bel Aire as a place to retire.
Good.
So I have a vested interest in making sure that our city runs well. So that's kind of why, my background and why I've got some thoughts on what we can do from a city perspective. And by the way, I like for these to be interactive, so please stop me at any time with any questions.
Okay.
So when I spent time with each of the areas, I sat down with your staff in each of the key functional areas and spent hours with them going through what they do, how they use the systems, where they have challenges, where things work well, and where they would like to see improvements. And what I found was kind of what I expected to find. Again, having worked with hundreds of companies that IBM bought, as well as the companies I worked with, you see kind of a consistent pattern with small companies that rapidly scale. When you start off, you don't have 2 nickels to rub together, so you do the best that you can with the systems that you can afford. And you try your best to staff your company with very bright, hardworking individuals that are willing to overcome the limitations that the systems have. But once your product catches on and it starts to scale and business volumes go up, most companies reach inflection points where it's time to step back and rethink what you've got in place and get some enterprise class application capabilities in there so that you can run your company at scale. And I think that's the same whether you're a for-profit organization or a nonprofit, like a municipality that we have here in the city. So what I found here is a bunch of hardworking folks that are very bright, but are hamstrung by the systems that they have, either because of functional shortcomings. So for example, your payroll system can't do online timesheets. So literally print out timesheets every week and send paper around to sign. Or they don't talk to each other. Your eCity platform that's used for recreation as well as your utility billing doesn't have an automated interface into GWorks. So the staff have to manually move information from one system to the other, and then honestly back to eCity so the residents know that their utility bill was paid. And that's not only time consuming and wasteful, but it's error prone. So you can read through all of these gaps that I laid out here, but fundamentally the key things is you're running on antiquated software. Ted's already told you that your primary ERP is about 20 years old. The companies that support them are very small and don't have the development team necessary to make any significant improvements in those applications in any reasonable time frame. The eCity platform is actually a mom and pop. If you look at the address for the company, it's actual personal residence. And when I spoke with the owner, he said they really only have about 6 clients. So, very tiny. They don't meet current standards that you have for data privacy, security, or accessibility. The companies aren't audited. None of them have SOC compliance audits. So they don't have external auditors come in and audit their processes. None of that goes on with these companies just because they're small. And that's the situation that they're in. So, and then finally, your ERP system and all of its data sits on a server here in the city, which is an issue. So that's kind of the high level summary of what I found as I went through and spent with them. Now, there's a lot of words here. I'm a picture guy. I consume data better with pictures. So I drew out a mapping of your various processes and the systems that are used and how they interact with each other. And there'll be a test at the end of this.
You can't read it.
So I'm going to go through each of these one by one and talk about them so you guys don't have to worry about this. But we've got we've got recreation, you've got payroll and benefits, your utility billing processes, your licensing, permitting, court, and my personal favorite, the closeout process. And we'll talk about that later as we go through here. Now, the rectangles are processes. The circles are systems. Color coding is typical of what you would see. Green is good, yellow is not so good, red's bad. So red are areas where I found major inefficiencies. Yellow is areas where I found what I would consider to be medium inefficiencies, and green are where things are working pretty well. Now, one kind of key point, you'll notice that your ERP system, GWorks, I color-coded it in yellow. In terms of the functionality, when you're actually in there using it, there are some medium-level inefficiencies. Ted talked about the fact that it doesn't support multi-user scenarios very well. There's certain processes when you run them, they have to holler out the door, everybody get out of the system because I'm about to run this process, because it'll collapse if you have too much going on. But what's not obvious, almost all of the red rectangles, the root cause, they're red, is because of not having an ERP system that covers all those functional areas. If you did have an ERP system that covered all of the key functional areas, most of those inefficiencies go away. And it's 2 key reasons. Number one, you've got functional gaps. Again, the example that I used, you don't have the ability to do online time cards and approvals by managers, so you have to print off those manual time cards and send them around. So that's an example of functional gap. But then you don't have automated interfaces. So your massive majority of that closeout process is you've got a very bright person named Princess down there that spends a lot of time pulling all the data out of eCity, entering it into GWorks, taking it out of GWorks back to eCity, and making sure that it all ties out. And she did it all accurately. So obviously huge opportunity cost because she's a very bright person and could be doing a lot more important things, but then also the potential for errors, very high. So let's go through these one by one. We laid these out in what we think would be a reasonable set of phases for deploying a new ERP system. With any system with this kind of broad functionality scope, you almost never want to go big bang where you turn it all on at once. Best practice almost always is to deploy them in a sequence of phases in bite-sized chunks. We thought we would start with HR and payroll. Now, having said that, the vendor themselves will have significant input on what the order should be. They've obviously done this over and over again with other customers and have developed their best practices, but we think this is a reasonable set. It's a good place to start the conversation. For HR and payroll, it's a limited scope. It could be a quick win. With any of these packages, one of the key things that you look for in terms of successful deployment of a package application is that you go in with a mindset that you're going to change your processes to match what the system does out of the box. You don't go in with the thinking that we're going to make the system change to match the way we've always done things. That's the number one mistake that many organizations make. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the main reasons you see these projects go long and go more expensive. Now, that requires acceptance of change, and change is hard. It's difficult. People have done things for good reasons, right? And they like the way that they work. They're used to them. They're familiar. So getting a quick win out there so that the employees can all feel the improvement is going to be a critical first step. Eliminating those manual timesheets will be one that all the employees will feel the benefit of that. So we think that would be a very quick win, and one that I think could be done in a fairly relatively short time period compared to some of the other areas.
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
You talked about they will have a lot of say, the vendor will. Where in this process, do you kind of present what systems, what processes need to be fixed, and then you'll go out for bid with different vendors, or do you have a specific system in mind that you already know will work well for Bel Aire?
Very good question, Emily. The city already put together a very thorough RFP that they issued to a variety of companies, and ultimately 2 of them responded, and we're going to go through the scoring of those. And the city laid out the key capabilities that they need. And the vendors came back and responded to those. We've had follow-up conversations with the vendors. I have too, as well as getting into some of the technical details and questions that we would ask. And we've got later in the presentation, we've got how those the 2 finalists scored. Good question. Thank you. So next, one list, duplicate data entry. So your HR director spends time now manually keying into the payroll system the deductions necessary for benefits, because there's no feed from your payroll system and the HR system. Likewise, she also has to manually go and register people for the benefit providers, because the portal that the employees go to doesn't have an automated feed with the benefit providers. So again, manual data entry, potential for error.
And Brian, if I might, we didn't really address a lot of this, but this is a lot of when we talk audit process, where we print it off, I sign off on it, I don't have access to certain areas, then Ty signs off on a quarterly employee change. All that stuff is mainly due to all these manual processes and trying to work around that because our ERP system is not set up for that direct touch points with different employees. So something to add on payroll side, what would go away as well is a lot of the audit type running around we do for just to satisfy a checkbox and different things like that.
But you still can't, and I'm sure you'll get into this, but you still can't make it where there's one person like you who has access to everything in the entire system.
No,
that's one of the audit findings.
Yeah, and the big one on that too is there's limited trail. So all these newer ERP systems can see what every user is doing at all times. So if something goes wrong, you can audit the clicks.
Yeah.
The current one, there's a very limited, that knows what module someone's in, but it doesn't necessarily know what that person did. So that's a lot of the big issues. So I'll still have, we'll still have some employees with a lot of access because we're simply a small group. However, the audit trail would be the benefit of that side of getting a new
That's
RP.
good. Yeah. Great.
Next phase we think would be court. Again, limited scope. You've got one person down there that I think would be accepting of change. It would eliminate the manual creation of notices that she has to send out. This will be the first time too that your residents see an improvement because the recommended vendor has a portal that the residents can come to and get a lot of their questions answered self-service. What am I doing in court? What do we need to bring, et cetera, et cetera. Today, all those questions come into your court clerk, either the people showing up, somebody showed up in person while I was sitting with her, going through it, asking some basic questions that they could have easily known if the information had been available online, or they call in and consume her time with those questions. And then this will also most likely integrate very nicely with the city system that is used for felony cases and so forth, which today she has to manually work with. And the vendor also would interface directly with your Digitic and the NCIC system. So again, eliminating any issues with having to manually move information around.
And the biggest improvement would be if someone were to get a ticket for speeding, they go online, plead guilty, pay the ticket online, and avoid either a call into our court clerk or coming into the office. And that's the biggest win of this types of system. The problem we don't have that now is because there's very few intermediate payment systems that would willing to take on that type of, because it's a higher level of responsibility when you have to go through all the, I plead guilty on this case, this my social security, a lot of those steps is why we don't have it today. But this system we're proposing would be a huge benefit for the operational of court, as well as some of the standard forms that Lindsay has to submit to the state are auto-populated with our recommended ERP system. So we're talking a lot of quality time savings. So that's just two points to add.
So I want to know who Tyler Technologies is.
We're getting to it. And that's kind of where, if we start with the ERP, we kind of lose a lot of what I called Brian and asked him to do for us to get a better understanding of how important all this is. So we'll get to it as quick as we can. But
so phase 3 then that we would recommend would be the recreation area. Again, your residents are going to see improvement with an improved portal. The need to manually key transactions that occurred in the eCity system that's used for recreation and the G-Works goes away. It also eliminates some canned spam issues that currently are happening with the marketing emails that are sent out. And if you don't know what those are, when you register for anything by canned spam laws, the system has to tell you what that organization is going to use your data for that you're providing and give you the opportunity to opt out. Any email that goes out that has marketing content in it has to give you the opportunity to opt out of marketing emails going forward. And the system doesn't have any capability of doing that today. Later, we'll talk about some of the short-term stuff they're going to do to, take care of that situation in the current status. But, the new system would have all those capabilities. Next. Utility billing. This is probably going to be the one where you get the biggest impact in terms of efficiencies, because the current process is just fraught with inefficiencies, with having to move data between your utility billing system is run by a system called eCity over into GWorks. And then you've got the work orders that have to go out for connects and disconnects. Plus the closeout process is tremendously time consuming of physically pulling information out of eCity, manually putting it into GWorks, pulling it back out of GWorks, back into eCity so that your residents know that their bill has been paid. The other big impact here, and this is probably the one that the residents will feel the most, is a significantly improved portal for them to come and manage their utility billing capabilities, so their utility processes. So I think you saw earlier, Ted showed that, Evergy and other systems like that are setting people's expectations to have, very easy to use, information-rich websites that they can go to get information. And I think this will be probably the biggest impact that you have, not only on the residents, but then also on improvements. The closeout process or the disconnect process today is very time consuming because the payment processing in GWorks isn't real time. So before your clerk can actually issue a disconnect, she's got to go double, triple check if somebody's come in and made a late payment, because she wouldn't want to send a disconnect order when somebody made a late payment. It's just not showing up in the system yet. The system we're proposing, that's all real time. It wouldn't be an issue. Finally, the last one, which will be the most complex, is the licensing and permitting area. This one too has a significant amount of inefficiencies. There's a lack of trust in the current system, iWorks, so they're still maintaining these legacy spreadsheets that have the history of all the licenses and permits that have been issued. And honestly, in my observation, those Excel spreadsheets are the trusted source for your clerk down there. At the end of the day, she trusts them more than any of the systems that she uses. This area will be, we're saving it for last because it will have a big impact, but I think it will also be the one where the most significant amount of change is going to be necessary in terms of accepting the way that a new system operates, because there's a lot of history in the way the things have been done with permitting and licensing here. So this one I think will probably be the most challenging, but will have some significant benefits. So this is where, Emily, we start to get to answering your question. So the city did go and look at a bunch of systems and reached out to 4 different companies. 4 of them responded. A couple of them declined to, one declined to bid after going through a meeting with Deb.
So Deb's I added that. Sorry on you, Brian, but we were reviewing these and we sent them all out, and we, one company is like, we might be interested, and then Deb had a 2-hour meeting with her. All we needed, she goes, we can't help you, and hung up on us. so that was kind of I thought, just talk about the magnitude of what we do and what we're asking.
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick question on scoping. The scope of the ERP solution, did it include all of the accounting functionality, like the budgeting, the ledger? I didn't see those specifically called out on the diagram.
That's probably the nerve center of all these systems. So I guess that would be a first phase. That's really what you're buying, and then you buy the modules.
I assumed,
to add
but I
on,
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
that was
the
a key part of the scope.
The key, and probably my favorite part of all this is the budgeting and reporting elements of what we would get.
Okay. All right. So as you can see, we ended up with 2 vendors that responded with a full RFP. And, we went through various demonstrations by them. The city contacted the customer references, 4 for Cassell, 1 for Tyler. They were the 2 finalists. 9 total customer references for Tyler.
Yeah, and I might jump in real quick because we did a lot of legwork on this references, because we know firsthand what it's like when you select a bad vendor or a underperforming vendor, because you're stuck with this for 20 years. You want to make sure you one, reach out to long existing customers that been with Tyler for many years in Cassell, and not only ask them questions, but really get to the root of things. Deb and myself, we did a lot of, we even visited Valley Center to make sure we knew what we're getting into and talked to the clerks about what their experience is with shut-off day or something like that. How's your process there? So we tried to do a thorough reference check on both of these companies, and I think we did. Now I can't remember, but is it Heston? Heston. They moved from G-Works, our current, to Tyler. This was about a year ago, and we asked them, "Would you go back?" Not in a heartbeat. So we even got kind of a real-time experience reference from someone that was dealing with the exact same issues we're dealing with and moved to a newer company.
Cool. We'll take you through the scoring, but high level, when we did the scoring on what we were looking at, Tyler came in at almost double the score of Cassell. The key reasons for that is it covers all the functional areas. You're going to see that Cassell doesn't. It's got the best technical roadmap and security compliance posture of any of the vendors that we looked at. Significantly larger development team. A strong track record of steady growth and profitability. As Ted mentioned, these decisions are 10-year decisions that you're going to make. You've been on G-Works for 20 years now, right? So, and then, like you said, the best customer references with quite a few clients here in the Kansas and the Wichita metro area, which is really important because that gives you a community to interact with other users to share best practices, but also it's a talent pool. So if your court clerk leaves and you find another court clerk in town, good chance they may have used the same package already. In the same way the airline industry decided to consolidate in Wichita. And I think these next two charts, Ted, you put together just showing.
This is the number of Tyler customers in the state of Kansas right now. And this is the same system we're going to buy. So there's actually probably more, just maybe older systems. And then the next slide are the ones in the local area. This is actually more important nowadays than it's ever been. It's the ability of hiring clerks, hiring people. Imagine you go into a new job, you don't like you want to leave your job, you don't like your situation, and we open up a clerk position, or someone leaves, and you already know the system. How far ahead are we going to be in training and those types of things? So that was also a consideration I had with the new employment environment we're in right now.
Here's the scoring that we did. We scored them in 3 categories: functional capabilities, technical capabilities, and then an assessment of the company's overall strength. And we weighted each of the areas based on the importance to the city. So these are all weighted scores. And I mentioned already that Tyler came out significantly better. It would allow us to consolidate onto that one single ERP because it covers all the functional areas. You're going to see later Cassell doesn't have anything for recreation, which would force us to maintain the eCity application and all of the interfaces that go along with it for the recreation section. Fully functional portal for utility billing, which is going to put the city in a position that they can start to pass on the charges that go along with transaction processing, like other municipalities do. You're going to see later that's a big part of the business case. Self-service portal for the fees, or frees up the clerk. Fully automated timesheets and payroll. Real-time utility payments. Full PCI compliance. If you're not familiar, PCI is a standard that's been put together by the credit card processors. And this proposal from Tyler comes not only with software, but with the hardware that would be used for your credit cards being processed.
So are we going to be required to use them for credit card processing, or will we still have the flexibility to use our own credit card processor?
It's a separate branch. And Brian and I had a meeting with them. Yes. Was it last week or so to just kind of introductory. From experience, it's really difficult to set up a third party. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now. We wanted a little lower rate, and we really sought after and what we have now is eCity, which is the form, but our actual credit card processor is Net Authorization, and they also have another company in between that. It's just really nice when I'm reversing a payment or doing anything to have all that within one family. However, I'm very aware and cognizant of what it costs and what you should charge. And I think Brian is as well. And I kind of know the market rate because we've had our own third party. I see what a American Express business card charges versus a Visa debit card on the standard rate. So a lot of these companies will just charge a flat rate for all cards. If that's 5%, I'm like, not every business card we have come in here is going to be an Amex business. We have a lot of debit cards as well, so that shouldn't be a 5% fee. It should be a 3%. So I'm well aware of the market. I would suggest going with the ERP's preferred vendor because of those types of little issues that I run into 3 times a year where I have to reverse a payment. Yeah, so that's a whole different conversation we'll get to.
The key though is that this would significantly, well, it would, I don't know, significantly, but definitely improve your posture today. You do take credit cards over the phone, which puts your city staff technically in possession of the credit card number, even for a short period of time, even though it's manual. This will get us into a situation where the term is it's fully outsourced, meaning that the city is never in possession of a credit card number, which is where you want to be. Finally,
What would prevent somebody from calling in with their credit card number at that point if they wanted to pay on the phone?
it'll have to be city policy. Just don't do that
Okay.
anymore. And when you have an improved portal to make it easier for people to do stuff online, you'll be in a position to make that statement.
Yeah, and what they're going to some cities have an automated system that if you say that, hey, I want to pay my phone or my bill over the phone, and then our clerk will transfer you to an automated, and it does. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's not the same. Yeah. The PCI doesn't treat it the same as a over the phone transaction.
I'm sure we have a ton of demand for the web portal version. I can just also imagine we may have some demand for customers that would still prefer to call in and pay over the phone like that. And
A lot.
I wanted to make sure there wasn't necessarily a technical limitation that would prevent us from doing that. It would have to be a policy.
No, yeah, it would be a policy, but it would be more beneficial to have sort of automated where they can still call in, give their number and their own, and make the payment. And that's where when I'm at 5 over the phone, 5, I don't know the averages, but quite a few of our older residents utilize, I'm going to call the clerk and make my payment. So that's something we got to be aware of as well, but having an option for that demographic as well.
And then finally, in terms of security posture, you're going to see, Tyler is their SOC 1, SOC 2, which is for if you're an ISO person, similar to ISO 2000 or 27001.
Yeah.
They are certified, externally audited. They do penetration testing on a regular basis.
Are they
annual
publicly
basis.
traded?
What's that?
Are they a publicly traded company?
They are a publicly traded company,
Okay.
yes.
So that's where the SOX comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And in addition, they are moving away from a client that has to be installed on the desktop that the user uses to a full web-based client, which creates a whole bunch of additional ability to improve performance. And also the new client is fully compliant with accessibility standards. So if the city did have somebody apply to work that was visually impaired, the system would work with screen readers and those sorts of things that the ADA requires. So by far the best in terms of that. They've got a development team of 900 people, whereas you're going to see Cassell's got 30. So significantly better. Their annual revenue last year was 1.8 billion, and if their growth trend continues this year, they'll be over 2 billion, 37,000 customers. So this is a very significant company, and a company that is going to be around.
So the cost wasn't included in the scoring?
Oh, the cost, you'll see the cost comparison with both of them here in the next couple slides. So
So how long have they been in business?
42 years, if I remember correctly.
And who's trying to buy them?
I don't know of any, there was,
Who's trying to buy them? Because you see these things every day. We see somebody else some tech firm being bought out by somebody else.
yeah, I don't know of any, didn't see any or didn't hear any scuttlebutt about any M&A activity.
Okay.
And
And
that,
again, this would be a big pill to swallow. I mean, so it would take like an Oracle to, buy them up.
Yeah,
I
we're
mentioned
seeing
Oracle
these-
because they bought Cerner a year
Yeah.
ago,
We're seeing these multi-billion-dollar deals almost daily. It seems like.
right?
Yeah.
And I know, Brian, that you asked that question specifically to to John, the
Right.
representative, and
It's not that
he
you
said
can say-
they're pretty much buying up other they're kind of the big fish in this pond right now, and I understand that there's always bigger fish, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of company we're dealing with there.
It's kind of a niche market.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see, the IBMs of the world wouldn't be interested in, well, first IBM doesn't want to be in the application business, but couldn't see even like an Oracle being in there. They already have an ERP system that's really for the corporate environment. SAP, maybe. But that's a whole new, it's just different. It's just a
It
different
is.
customer base, whole different area. It doesn't, I couldn't see any of those. You got me into speculation land, Jim. Because like I said, I was involved in a fair number of due diligence with IBM as we were considering companies. And so I know a lot of the thought process that go on when you want to buy one, when you don't.
Yeah.
So
In terms of the technical assessment, did y'all evaluate the ability to access our data outside of the system? So their ability to provide API endpoints for staff if they want to be able to plug up a Power BI report to the data in real time, or if the city should go buy a piece of software where the vendor doesn't have a prepackaged integration, the ability to integrate with software through APIs.
I didn't get into an API layer, honestly, with the size of the city. I didn't really see that being a scenario that I would expect them to use. However, I did specifically send to Ted, because I know he's a big numbers guy. Tyler does have out-of-the-box integrations with Power BI and Tableau, which are two of the high-end analytics packages. So if you're wanting to analyze large data sets and be able to slice and dice it in 1,000 different ways, those are tools that you could add on that they've got out-of-the-box integration for.
Yeah, I would expect that would be most of the use cases that the city would have, except if we were to go buy some other disconnected software and that vendor were to want to do an integration with our ERP solution. That's probably where that would come into play.
I suspect they probably do. If they're going to a full web-based client, I would expect that it's going to be a microservices architecture with APIs that could be exposed externally. But we didn't get into that level of conversation with them. Tyler, I take it you've got some experience in this area?
A little bit.
Yeah. We doing on time?
Good. We could probably, I guess we can touch on Cassell.
Yeah. Cassell, I hit on most of these points as I went through. It doesn't have anything for recreation, so that would force the city to maintain East City and its issues. The reporting, they can't do any graphs. And in fact, they told us what they recommend is that people just export the data to Excel and do their analysis in Excel, which, isn't necessarily good. Their development team is less than 4% of Tyler's. They've got 30 developers. They're still on Justin, they're still on a fat client that they use Windows version of Cisco, or not Cisco, of Citrix. For access.
What did their roadmap look like to get off of that?
I didn't get into that with them, with 30 developers. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Okay.
Right?
But Tyler Technologies is
Tyler
not.
said by the end of next year, they expect to have feature parity
Okay.
between the web client and their .NET client that they have today.
Is their .NET client also through Citrix?
No, not
Okay.
that I'm aware
It's
of.
just locally installed.
Yeah, locally installed. Yep. Okay, and I think I answered all those questions. So let's get to the dollars. Tell us where you guys are at. So the business case, we laid this out in 4 years. So you started with 2023. This is your existing cost. Ted, if you want to just walk through this, or if you'd like me to.
Sure. So on page 22 of the PowerPoint, I just handed out some pricing sheets we can go over later, but 2023 estimate. So right now the legacy systems, which was what we talked about, is $69,000, a little over $69,000 a year is our annual service subscription for all our legacy systems. Now, and during COVID, we wanted to incentivize our residents not to come in but pay over online. So what we did is removed any type of transaction or convenience fee for credit cards if you pay online. That started at like $20,000. Now it's up over $50,000. So if you include that policy of eating the credit cards, then we're spending about $124,000 a year on this type of system. Now, if you want to exclude the 54,000, and that's kind of what we were thinking with our change to a new ERP system, is we wouldn't continue this policy. Rather, we would have a portal online that allowed ACH, which is a much cheaper transaction. So what we would do, or what my suggestion would be, is we essentially eat transaction fees for ACH, which is you put in your bank account information and make the transfer versus your credit card number. That would be free, but the credit card number you put in, you would accept the convenience fee of, say 3% or whatever, 3.25, like normal cities. So that money would basically go away. Now, if we don't move to a new ERP system, then we would probably be looking at a policy change and upsetting a lot of residents, or looking at I don't know what we would do as far as how we would move forward with that, other than just putting a convenience fee without improving the online database. So that's kind of what my trade-off is we really improve the portal and ways of paying. However, and you have a free option on that, but if you want to use a credit card, you'll have to pay a convenience fee like every other municipality in the area. So to understand that, that's the 2024 estimate. And Brian, you can probably do the 20, that's the 2023 estimate where we're at today, about $124,000. So 2024 it gets a little sticky because if we move, and Brian will explain those 4 different transactions.
Yeah, so there's the implementation costs. So with Tyler, you're looking at $196,000. This is a variety of things. It's primarily professional services to get the system configured for you. With these types of applications, there's a lot of settings inside the application that you can change to have it reflect your city's logo, use all of your paper, connected to your bank accounts, a lot of things that are within the application. It's not custom code, but it's just changing configuration settings in the application. And that takes some implementation time. So a lot of this professional services. I was honestly surprised. They gave us both the hours and the dollar amounts per section, and they're only looking at about $145 an hour for the professional services, which is relatively cheap for a vendor like this. I've seen professional services coming from a software vendor being more in the $300 an hour range. So I was kind of surprised at that. The next big area of work would be training. There's a fair amount of training in here for the existing staff, and then also data converting data from your existing systems into the new system. So that's what that money is for. You're gonna have to pay the license fees for the software in the first year as you're turning it on. So that's with all of these types of implementations. This is what we call bubble cost, where you're paying for the old system and the new system while you're in the cutover phase. And then once you get to 2025, the cost of the legacy systems go away, as well as the cost that you've been eating for the transaction fees. And ultimately, you're at a lower run rate than you are today with this business case.
It doesn't go away, the cost doesn't go away, you just transfer that to the customer.
Yeah, you passed it on to the customer. Yes.
So, I mean, it's not really a fair comparison. It should be 55 on both columns. But anyway, I get it.
Yeah, it nets out.
And I think what you're exactly right. That'll be moved to however the customer will have a choice to do a free method or continue using their credit card. So that's the difference. So they have that choice.
Then
I think the point
you'll
is
encourage them to move to ACH transactions.
That's what.
And right now, I think to get set up with ACH, you have to fill out a paper form
Yes.
with our utility
I think that's
group.
right.
And so if you change your bank accounts or anything, it's
Yeah, I
it's
did
great. Yeah, I've done that before, and so being able to do it online will hopefully make it a little bit
And
easier.
Greg, I
for
think
people
that's
to
kind of
do
the point that
ACH.
the city's making with the portal that we have today. We don't think that we're providing the citizens the capabilities that would make it worth passing on that convenience fee to them with a portal that provides, modern capabilities on there. Then we feel it would be more appropriate to be able to ask the residents to pick that up. So they're going to be getting some benefit from it.
And Brian, if you skip one more ahead,
Okay.
Council member David, I kind of knew that's where a lot of council members were going to go, so I cut out the credit card. So with credit card, current spend, without, and with. So this is kind of what basically after that first year of all the training and fees, we would be spending in 2025 $108,000 for the software, whereas today we do about 70,000. So that's really the difference in software cost to the city on the long-term basis or the year-to-year basis. So yes, I know the first year number is really big, and that's kind of why we were preparing for this, have it in the capital improvement program. But that continuing one is the one I really look at as the financial officer of the city, is how much is this upgrade going to cost us year over year? And that's kind of what I looked at and I thought was a pretty fair trade-off, considering. Cassell, I know we didn't talk much about them, but it's really just a minor upgrade to what we currently have, and the price reflects it. Right now we're spending about 70, would go to 77,000 if we chose the lower cost option. I would almost not want to go, it's too small of a jump in my mind to go through all the training and the different to do it. So yes, it is an option, but it's the light version of what we currently, or a little beefed up version of what we currently have. And that's what we ran into with asking all these companies to respond to our RFP, is there's really not a lot of companies that are designed to take on a city, all the city services like we are. So I wanted to have this slide in front of you tonight because, potentially with how conversations go, this is what you'll see next week. And this is what you'll be, thinking and seeing in your eyes. So I wanted to have that conversation now so I can bring back any information to you that I can when you make the final decision. Why are we wanting to do it? And I don't know if Brian wanted to tee this up, but why are we wanting to do it in December? And I'll let Brian kind of go on.
You skip the next two slides. You can
Okay.
read them. There were some recommendations on best practices and some other things. But the recommendations that I came back with for the city near term, those Excel spreadsheets used by city licensing is on one person's hard drive, and you've got multiple people that need to access them. So I recommend the city move those to the Microsoft Cloud so multiple people can access at the same time. Tristan's already taken some action to eliminate the canned spam issues with the emails that are being sent from the recreation system. But the recommendation long-term is to move forward with Tyler Technologies and to sign a contract with them by the end of this year. This is the end of their fiscal calendar. And for those of you that haven't been in the software industry for decades, the industry's been conditioned, all the customers have been conditioned to know that if they wait until the end of a quarter, and especially the end of the year, they're going to get the best discounts. When I was at IBM, we would do 50% of our revenue in the last 2 weeks of the quarter. And when I was at Informix, same thing. We even gave special incentives to the salespeople to get them to close, higher commissions to get them to close the deals in the first part of the quarter. Just couldn't happen. The industry is too conditioned. When we spoke with Tyler last week, he mentioned that his management team is asking him repeatedly, where are we with this deal? Now,
with this being, when you buy software in the private sector, you're often like signing confidentiality agreements to not disclose what you're paying, and so nobody really knows what everybody else is paying. This is government sector, where I assume all cities know what all other cities are paying. So one of the questions that I have here is how much negotiating happens with this type of software purchase, and I guess what is the basis for pricing on a software solution like this?
I don't know that, I don't know if you've talked with any of the other folks on the public level, but I know from my experience of a deal of this size, this is a 3-year deal with a total contract value of about $500,000. So it's not a massive deal for Tyler, but it's not chump change either. I would expect to see the discounts in the 25% range on their license fees. Right now, their opening bid is 11%.
And that's kind of where it would definitely be a not to exceed motion. And then we would go back with our counter. As far as comparables, I mean, it's good to have a network. Goddard went out to bid for the similar system, and it's not too far off of what we were quoted. The difficult part of this is, like us, is we haven't changed in 20 years. I'll hear people changing and ask them, but some of the people I contact to, they would say, well, yeah, we changed in 2019, but here was our price in 2019. Well, it's 2023.
Well,
So,
and that's the hard part with these solutions is it is so hard to change. We're potentially looking at a 3-year deal, but the likelihood that the city's going to change in 3 years is really, really low. And so all you're doing with a 3-year deal is giving the vendor an opportunity to renegotiate the price in 3 years and to raise the price on a customer that's unlikely to move. And so that's where I was kind of trying to understand, with this being more of a government software solution, is it pretty fixed in pricing? Everyone's, kind of paying the same either per seat price, or do they do some sort of revenue-based pricing where based on your city's revenues, you pay a rate for their software? I'm just interested in the licensing model, I guess.
It's tiered-based pricing, is what they told us. It's not, because I probed on that. I wanted to see if it was going to be more of the utility model where it's transaction volumes and or user count. It's not. So they bucket people into tiers. I didn't see any specifics on how the tiers break down, but that's a good suggestion to poll the other municipalities here in the city for what their actual pricing is.
and I don't know how far we want to dive into this, but our contact with Tyler was pretty. He answered this question pretty well, I thought. I mean, he was pretty straightforward with, there's going to be. I used to say 3% every year. It's probably more towards 5 right now, and that's kind of what I'm seeing in even our own antiquated software. We get the 5% every year, but with so many cities, it's kind of like buying Wichita water. Everybody knows, everybody yells when something goes up really high. And I haven't heard that with Tyler in years. It's usually just the 3 to 5% type bickerings, or I shouldn't pick on Wichita water. It's just been in the news lately. The healthcare, any of those large expenses city has, everyone leans on them. They say, oh, we got 12%, we got, all that kind of stuff. But This is one that through my network, I haven't seen them hollering too hard at the annual increases Tyler or any of their competitors are putting on them.
So when you talk about compatibilities and you've got these, you're going to use the same legacy systems that you're just adding, putting this in the center of them to make them all communicate, right? So, like your utilities, you get the meter readers, okay? And that software, I don't know the name of the software, but it collects that data.
Census, yep.
Census, okay? So it collects that data. It's going to plug that data into this system, right? Okay.
Right.
And that's what each of these modules do. You got IMA for payroll, right? And it's
IMA is just benefits. So once a year, open enrollment.
benefits, yeah. Okay.
That one's not as, but you're right. Census. Right now, we have to, yes, it's all annual meter reads, but we run an operation to send it into our system. This just eliminates it. It'll connect with it automatically.
Right, but
So,
you have to,
yeah.
you have all those systems out there, correct?
Very
Like
few
4
left that will be
Okay.
left after we transition.
So let's just talk about rec center, for instance, when they have their programs and stuff, and people go online to sign up for the programs, that system is still there. It's going to plug into this. Is that correct? Or is this going to replace that?
Replace it.
It replaces that.
That particular area. That's why each area is different.
So, and I kind of get that. So what about like in code enforcement where they're looking at backflow preventers and they're supposed to go online with automated system this next year? I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Mhm.
Is that going to change? Or
That'll be
what happen?
replaced with the Tyler system.
Okay, so people with testing backflow preventers will not have an online capability in 2024 to
No,
upload and
because
say, "Hey,
that's
we-"
part of baked in costs that we were showing is we'll keep those systems live until, so that's the transition year. So you'll have your old systems working at the same time as your new until we're ready to go live.
Well, here's my concern.
Okay.
In 2022, we did not have that capability. Those contractors had come in with their licenses and somebody had to input them into the system. And I was told back then that in 2024, we would be able to, those contractors would be able to do that online. Where are we today on that? Is that still true, or they're not going to be able to, whether we change the system or not?
I believe Garrett's been working with iWork pretty heavily, so I believe that is the case. We're kind of I'll confirm it with you, but I'm 90% sure.
There's some improved capabilities in planning and zoning right now, but it has, and those will keep working as they go. But Tyler's capabilities are still better than what we're doing.
So we're not
I
done
understand that,
implementing
but
that.
what I understand is we are going to have that capability in 2024, and then going forward, Tyler will take over that either by using that legacy system, or their own version of that legacy system. Is that
Yeah,
true?
so 2024 we'll use iWork, and I'll go ahead and say it because we're not going to be up and running in 6 months when they're due.
Yeah.
So yes, in 2024 they will submit via the iWork system, our current system.
Okay.
In 2026, I imagine they'll submit into the Tyler system, which is automatically associated with our payments. So they can not only submit the report, but probably sign up get their business license to be an irrigation checking, or I don't know if a plumber does it, or irrigation business license, as well as pay for 5 of their clients in Bel Aire and submit that. So that's the difference between now. They'll probably only have the capability to go online and submit their forms and not have to come in. But in 2026, it'll probably be a suite that will allow them to do everything.
Yeah, because I know in
Yeah.
2022, Garrett was saying
Yeah.
they'd get a stack of forms and they'd have to hand input all those in the system.
Yep.
And they get backlogged. And so you say, well, these people are past due, but no, not really. They're in the stack. Right?
Yeah, and
So
I
that's
believe
the
I talked to Garrett probably a month ago, and that's why I'm a little shaky on it. But I think they're all he's all ready to go with that.
Good. Okay, I just want to make sure that we weren't going to create another issue there in that respect. So back to the vendors, like, say we decided in the future that we wanted to change our meter reading vendor. Is this system able to adapt to that? And I know you can't tell me the future because nobody knows, but
But
what's
they
their,
do have 37,000 existing customers.
okay,
So the odds that whatever meter reader you pick that they've run into and already have an interface for is much higher with
Okay.
a company of this size than a company that's only got, a few hundred customers.
okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay, good. And then are we going to need additional hardware to do this system?
No.
Like,
No, in fact, that server that you're running, can go away. So the server that you run your ERP system on that's in the building,
uh-huh.
this will be all cloud-based. So
Oh,
people's
so it
existing-
won't take any server capacity. What's the
We'll be
term
out of
I'm
the
looking
server
for?
business, which is a good thing.
Brian, you might talk a little bit about, and I believe they take responsibility of the data as well, or do we? And I'm meaning when they're fully on the cloud,
Oh, yeah.
that it's their data, not ours. So that even reduces the risk of our.
So all the types of things that you want to do is when you're running a data center, ensuring that the network that you're hiring somebody to try and hack into it. That's called penetration testing.
Mhm.
You guys don't do that here. Is it Imagine IT? They could do it, but you'd have to pay for it. Tyler does that. They have independent companies try to hack into their environment on Amazon, and then they get documented findings, and they have to go in and address all those things. Disaster recovery plans. If this building burned down, I doubt that you guys have a plan that you've tested of how you're going to bring that server up in some other location and renew your activities of being able to bill people, right? Because just the size of the city. They have a disaster recovery plan that's tested every year. I mean, that's part of, the types of controls that you need in place if you're going to be SOC 2 compliant. All those kind of things that you would expect with an industrial strength kind of company are in place with a company this size.
Okay.
The benefit of the cloud is that it allows for smaller organizations to get enterprise class capabilities at a price point they can afford because you're paying for your slice of it, right? So the economies of scale come into play. So all of your data, the applications are all going to be in a secure Amazon cloud. It's got all the level of encryption, both Justin is fully encrypted at rest and in transit. And all the data is fully encrypted. Cassell would only say that they encrypt the sensitive information, which was a red flag for me. They also said they had 11 nines of availability, which I didn't believe.
That's more than the cloud providers
I
offer.
know, exactly.
Yeah.
Cloud providers talk about their amount of availability that they have in a year based on the percentage of uptime. And typically the best that you see is 99.999. Okay, so that's 5 nines, which is, you've got to have multi-site redundancy. You've got to have your application running in Amazon's West Coast, Amazon's East Coast, and probably Europe. 3 different locations that, are fully up to date, and, one of them gets hit by, a hurricane and leveled. All of your work can go on somewhere else. So that's 5 nines. That's the highest I've ever seen quoted ever. Cassell said they had 11. I don't know how you even get to that. So
On the Tyler Technologies response, the professional services that they quoted, the implementation that they quoted, is that a fixed bid implementation or is it estimated time and materials?
it's estimated time and materials.
So that has the potential to significantly go
I
up.
probed them pretty hard on that in the conversation about what level of data conversion should we expect. The interfaces that we're asking them to do, all of them they've done before, so it's not new to them. And I probed pretty hard on the potential for overruns on that and what could cause those? Now, a lot of this is going to be in the city's control, right? So again, back to one of those success criteria, have a mindset where you're going to change your practices to the best practices that are already built into the software package. And why that's so important is if you haven't customized it to the way you do things, you're walking away from millions of dollars of R&D. So they've built into a package application what works best at what they've seen across 37,000 customers. So if you adopt the way that it's built in there, you've got hundreds of out-of-box reports, you've got workflows that are already defined, screens that are already laid out, everything's just ready to go. It's a lot of times what drives those numbers up is customizations. So to the extent that you can stay away from those, that you should be safe.
And I strongly recommend you don't try to do the customizations. I've seen too many businesses that try it and their systems do not work for them.
And that line between configuration and customization can be blurry, and
Yes.
that's often the trap that you can fall into, I think.
Mhm.
Ted, you saw the system. How happy were you with how things looked? Did they look like they did everything we needed without any changes?
And then more. Yeah, it's a real eye opener, I guess. From the budgetary side, it's pretty amazing how you can note every line item each year. Meaning, I don't have to have a separate Excel spreadsheet. You know, I have the column and notes. I can have that every year inside of my system. So if you say why in 2019 did we spend this much on blank, I can go to that, not only see the invoices paid out of it, not only click on the invoice and the actual PDF of the invoice come off instead of going to a different file in my office, but I can see the invoices, but I can also see a note that's attached to it saying all these expenses, because it's sometimes hard when you have 25 invoices, what all these go to, are for street preservation of Baton, or whatever different line items. So as well as the graphing element, different reports I have that are really time consuming, are like a monthly report where I have all the graphs, or any kind of budget presentation. A lot of that stuff is integrated in with the system, which is a huge time saver for someone like me. The biggest, most exciting thing, and all, I could go through a million different examples, but on the UB side, utility billing side, just and we touched on, shut off day, how hectic it is and how stressful it is for employees, because at 10 o'clock, we're refreshing our credit card screen to make sure that no one that just paid at 9:59 wasn't going to get shut off that day. All that's integrated, as well as truthfully on the customer side, it's huge, because I heard it for 7 years, just customers angry because we're trying to explain something over the phone that we're seeing on our screen as far as usage patterns and different things, and they just can't simply see it on their side. They have to come in. Nobody wants to come in now. So what happens is it ends up being some sort of a contingent, kind of a difficult conversation to have if you have a toilet leaking. Whereas you can go online and see, oh, my usage is slowly climbing up every month. What's going on? Or in the near future, hopefully with our having a company that is agile enough to include improvements. So hopefully in the near future, they'll be able to see their every hour, their water meter will ping back to the tower and give a reading. So we don't have that capability right now, but soon we'll be with a company that's going to include that in the portal, where someone can see their usage on every hour. And that's kind of what Evergy has. That's what those types of things had. Now, I'm not saying that's what's this package right here is, but I feel comfortable knowing that we're getting in with a company that's going to grow with us. We talk a lot about AI. We talk a lot about all kinds of different applications, but the court is amazing on that side of things. So just, it's kind of an exciting element of, and I think Brian, I love that he sat with all of our employees and he would have multiple conversations like, man, she could be doing so much more, but she's sitting here manually entering stuff. And that makes me feel good as, hey, I hired her, but it makes me feeling better that we can utilize our employees. Not, again, it's maybe not, I don't want to stream it into, it's going to solve all our ills, because Brian will be the first to tell you sometimes the best tool we have is a well-trained clerk that knows what they're doing. We're never going to go away from that. We're still a social company, and we're still have to have great customer service and be with people. But this just empowers our employees to be even more productive.
You talked about going back and looking at historical data. Is Tyler going to import all that?
Yeah, they can import as much as, and that's kind of what the data conversion, that's what that is importing all our old data. It probably not going to be as good as I'd want it. It's probably going to be starting in 2024 is when we're going to get the notes, and I'm not going to go back and note every line item
From 1980.
but I know how fast time goes, and by the time we turn around, it'll be, oh wait, I have that data. It's 2024. So
there was a statement made by somebody that the Tyler would own the data. There's concern with that because we being a public entity, we're responsible for our information. So how is that going to work?
that was my miss. I think that was a miss. I meant own the risk. I'm sorry.
They own the risk. Oh,
Well, they own the management. I mean, you still own your data. You're still responsible for it in terms of, for example, the data compliance standards that are out there. They typically categorize people into data processors and data controllers. The controller is the one who has the rules of how the data is collected, how it is used. You will be the controller, okay? The processor is the company that you hire to process the data for you, that runs the system, that has the servers and all of that sort of stuff. So that's GDPR speak. I know that you guys aren't you don't have to be GDPR compliant because you don't have any European customers.
Right.
However, California created their own version of GDPR called CCPA. You do have California residents that own rental property here. So you do need to be CCPA compliant. And Tyler is. And in that case, you're going to be the controller. You're the one that sets the rules.
Do you anticipate with the server going away and going to the cloud that any of our fees that we're paying to IT or Imagine IT will go down for any of their services?
Certainly a discussion point. I haven't broached that conversation with them, but I mean, that is a lot of, the monthly fee is, a lot of that backup style. So less data we back up, the less cost it should be to back up our data. So I'll check with them. Hopefully there's some savings, but the problem with IT providers is a lot of the cost is the 24/7, 365. I'll call them and I need a tech to be on it. So I don't imagine a huge cost savings, but I think some of the data backup expenses we incur should go down, especially, we just 2 months ago worked with a lot of our body cam and dash cam storage will be going away as well. So that's good.
And just so I understand, over 2024, where we have that overlap, but both systems going, but then it should be, the phasing will happen over 2024 and we will be completely converted by the end of the year, ideally.
Ideally, that's the goal. I mean, until we get get a signed contract, get the vendor in here, get things planned. In most cases, it's the customer that's the gating factor, not the vendor. So I think a lot of it'll be how fast Bel Aire is, the city here is willing to, embrace the change and be able to absorb that level of change.
And to speak on that, I think the only, again, we can't promise anything, but the major systems I can see being on a year, the only risk, I guess the budgetary risk we would have is something like iWorks. Probably planning and zoning is going to be last. So we're going to keep the current existing system. And that's about $10,000 a year. It's in software. So that I would say if you're looking for the risk of this running over a year, what would we have to keep paying that large amount? I would say it's about $10,000 would be our risk going into 2025.
In your checking of references, did you talk about implementation and difficulties or any issues with implementation?
I'd have to check with Deb. I know we've been talking it up quite a bit, and I know that we're going to run into some roadblocks.
No doubt.
There's no doubt. And that's why it's so hard to be like, oh, they're amazing, and then I might send you 2 direct deposit notices on the second. No, I doubt it, but it might happen. So I don't want to. I don't want to say all our problems are ill, but they're going to get better. We're going to run into some roadblocks, especially that first year. I can ask Deb. I can't specifically remember someone saying, "Oh yeah, the everything went the heck as soon as we got it up." I imagine there's quite a few roadblocks, like you said, and it's a lot of it's probably staff training and different elements.
I guess the thing I would like to hear, and not trying to put people's words in people's mouths, was that when they had issues, that they worked on them right away and got them addressed right away and didn't wait a week or 2 or a month or whatever it was to do something with it.
Here's the I'm glad you said that, because now I remember one of the comments. It said when we had an issue, and granted, we're kind of used to waiting a day to hear back from an issue we might have with our current system. And they said, well, sometimes their response times are getting a little slower. Last time it took them 40 minutes to get back to me. So usually it's within 15, they said, but the long, oh my gosh, the only hard thing they had was they had to wait 40 minutes, which is very short in my mind for an issue. So what I'll do is talk to Deb and see what reference she had on the conversion, and I'll have that information for you before you have a vote on this.
Because I guess, and it sounded like you answered the support issue after the system's already up and running.
Yeah.
But I'm looking more at the support issue as you trying to implement when you run across, there's a roadblock here. What do we do? Kind of a thing. And how do we work through that?
And I guess,
how well does that work?
And they touched on that a little bit. Of course, you'll be assigned a dedicated project manager, all that stage. I will say the cool part about Tyler in doing the demos, and I don't want to make light on this. We spent 6 hours one day with them in demos, another hour, probably 9 hours of demo time with them over the last month. And each module, so UB, they had a UB clerk, so a retired UB clerk from a different community, demos the product for you. So when you're asking questions, you're like, yeah, we used to run that all the time. Here's how I do it on this system. They have a retired, payroll clerk doing the payroll. So I think they're very in tune to what questions we're going to ask, and we're able to demo that correctly. Now, I'll make sure and ask about the support during implementation, and we'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
Software support 5x12.
Yeah, that's,
What happens when the credit card processing goes down on Sunday afternoon? Do they fix it, or do we just wait till Monday?
we'll ask them that question.
Because especially credit card processing, people want to do it now, and if they're due by Monday, they want to get it done.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of those, and we'll ask them, and I'll follow up on it. A lot of the 5x that kind of stuff is support with employee support type. IT is usually always 24/7.
They have,
That's something I want to know. For
Sure.
So in the quote also, in their RFP, I asked them to give us their SLAs for availability and what the penalties are if they don't achieve those. They target 100%. The penalties start to kick in at, I think it was anything below 95.7% availability of the system. That's a few hours a year of availability. So they're going to start refunding you money.
That's an
If that
SL,
availability drops below that level.
that's an SLA they put in the contract?
It's in the contract. Yep. Yeah, I asked for that and got it from them.
Good.
So I think they've got monitoring in place, and if those key capabilities went down, alarm bells go off, people start getting drug out of bed. If they're not already on staff, they've got 7,000 employees, they're going to have people working 24/7
You've been there a few
because
times,
they're going to
haven't
have to
you?
start paying penalties.
I'm used to phone calls at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yep.
Fix it now statements.
Yeah, so they're going to have to start paying penalties out to 37,000 customers if that availability doesn't meet that SLA.
How often would the city expect the software to be updated by the vendor?
They said they have major releases about every quarter, I think it was. Yeah.
And they manage that upgrade
Yes.
process for us?
Right.
Are those automatic or do we have to pay extra for?
No, they're automatic. That's included in the subscription fee. You get all the new software.
Is there training required to those, or if training is required, how does that work? If they change enough, you got to be trained.
We didn't get into when additional training is required, if there's, a significant enough change in it. In today's world, especially with web-based software, a lot of designers will tell you that if training is required, you failed in your design. And that can hold to be pretty true. In particular with web-based software, you guys may have seen this as you go in, a new version, of software comes in, you get little pop-ups that say, look, you can do this here now. And then this pop-up happens. Oh, guess what? You
I
can now
hate
do
those
this.
things.
But if
They
you
get in my
take
way of working.
Yeah, if you take the time to read them, though, it helps you understand the new features that have been done. And with frequent deliveries, the changes are typically incremental enough that, and again, if they're designed well enough, that a person that's fully trained in the application is not going to require, additional training to understand the new capabilities.
So the other good thing about going with a bigger company is, they're well in tuned with the way new workforce is learning. They have Tyler University right now that is pretty much 90% like YouTube videos for instructions if you forget something or need something, and that's very helpful. As well as they have an annual conference to show you different tips and tricks and things, which I don't know if we'll utilize, but that's an option for us as well, because a lot of times you get someone new and it's very hard to train while you're doing your job. So those types of resources are invaluable for, Tristan, can you imagine? And a lot of times we talked about the right time to do something like this. We have a pretty long-term staff right now that has the ability to change and understand. I don't know what I'd do if this was, if I had two new, brand new clerks and I, trying to juggle the existing clients as well as do a new staff. So timing of this is very important too, as well. We have the staff with the capability to adjust.
So you talked about Tyler University, and that's interesting. I kind of somewhat impressed with that because you get those videos and you can have people read those or watch those and get some training that way. What record would there be of the training? Is there an automated record system for that? Because I see companies, I audit companies for ISO, okay, and NAS standards, okay. So I see companies that have automated systems that track training and says, well, you need to do training on this procedure, and the software tracks when they've been trained. If they're required periodic training every year or every 2 years, it tells them your time is up. You got to do it again. Okay.
Right.
Because some specifications require that.
Yeah, I know that a lot of companies will have like business conduct guidelines that all the employees have to go through every year. And they want a record of that. I've not seen a scenario though where, they're required to have an audit trail of training they've taken to use internal IT systems. But that's something we could ask with regards to with regards to the Tyler University.
In my HR module, this just might be kind of looking at some of the docs, and there's an education and training section where they can submit certifications, and I can also put in alerts. I can say when maybe certifications and things like that are needed or required for kind of all different aspects. It's not directly with that Tyler University, but that could be something where those things would.
You have an application like that now?
No, I do not.
Okay,
But
but
this
are
is
you,
in Tyler in the module that I did get a demonstration of.
oh, there's a module for
There
that.
was that,
Okay.
yes.
Very good. That
Yeah.
sounds like it may have the right tool. I don't know the tool, but it may be there, right? Okay, good.
Back to the upgrades. Does everybody get an upgrade at the same time, or can we delay a few days or a few weeks so that we're not the guinea pig? I've seen too many times that's failed.
So multiple answers on that. It doesn't sound like, and I don't have the specifics on this. It's not, Justin, you would know this. It's not a full shared tenancy model where when they do release number, 1.2, everybody gets it instantaneously because you're all logging into the same application and it's just that your data is segmented. So there is some flexibility, as I understand it, in terms of when you would want to accept a new release. But my expectation will be there's like a window. Like when they come out with, the new release, you're going to have like a month, where you can move around and maybe do a little testing or whatever before yours is upgraded.
Okay. I just don't want to be the first person that does it.
Yeah, nobody wants to be on 1.0. I get that. But in these software as a service models, you do see scenarios where, all the clients, everybody that uses it gets the update at the same time.
Yeah. So then you all get the same bug at the same time.
But they will typically have alpha and beta customers that have tested it before they would go to general availability with everyone.
Are there so when the city gets through the full implementation of the Tyler technology solution, will there be any modules or significant features in the product that we will not be using because we've chosen not to use it?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
Or because we're not licensed to use it? I'm just wondering, like, with this implementation plan, will the city be fully leveraging all of the capabilities of this ERP, or is there more?
It's been a while. The hard part is I think that was I think that was kind of the older model of our current G-Works has a cemetery module that we don't use. We're not licensed for, but I think it used to, they say, we'll do everything for you. I think what the industry's doing is we're going to do these 7 or 8 things right and build it up. I plan to fully leverage what we're paying for, that's for sure, and look on my peripherals if there's something else. I can, rec is something that is an outlier that Tyler has and no one else has. And I think that's what the big boys are attacking right now is, okay, there's a niche market and offering cities a $10,000 rec add-on. We can buy that company, create it, and bring it in within our fold. So I can imagine going with someone like Tyler is they're going to keep investing in those types of add-ons so that we're not in the situation we're in right now where we're adding different performances. So
You kind of mentioned, the big players, maybe you're out there tackling some of that stuff right now. We had a couple of responses to our RFP here. Are there companies and solutions out there that didn't respond to our RFP that we wish would have, that might potentially be better solutions than what's being recommended here?
No, we reached out to of course, 7 very direct ones that we wanted to do business with. And the other, Oracle is the other one. They really couldn't service us. They didn't. And that, like I said, in the other one, Deb told them what we wanted and they just said, we can't service you. So I'm very aware of the market because I'm in those conferences with all the booths and I see them all. And a lot of them are the Cassells and the smaller ones that, they might have a really good general ledger, AP, UB. Everyone can do UP and general ledger, but can they do planning and zoning? Can they do good payroll? A lot of them will have a payroll process, but like Tristan was saying, I don't know if you heard her, that it's getting to the detail of if our water, I believe that's what, if our water operator needs to be certified, it's kind of attached to their electronic employment file instead of in their file. And someone like Tristan just becomes a lot more valuable to the city because she's tracking that in all the time. So I would say I've tried to exhaust all my knowledge of the situation, and this is probably the two
I just
major
wanted to make
ones.
sure we weren't missing out on somebody because they didn't respond to our RFP because maybe it's a busy time of year or they didn't have time to respond right now. But man, we really wished this other player had responded or we'd had heard good things about
Yeah,
them.
and like derbies with Tyler, that at a lot of times, if maybe we want to stretch, I'll go to a derby sized city and it's like, who are they using? Those types of things. But they're already with Tyler, so and McPherson's with Cassell. And what I'll tell you is, when we called reference on that, they said adequate. Not exactly the best reference you can give is, oh, it's adequate. That's not really what I wanted to hear. So
One of your first slides talked about one of the first changes would be electronic timesheets, doing all the timesheets electronically. Do all of the city's employees have computers or access to a city computer, or they regularly do work to do those electronic timesheets today? Or will that be some additional hardware and change management?
Yeah,
that we have
there's.
to,
I mean, the
there.
biggest one would be Public Works, and there's 5 computers down there. Granted, pretty older, but I mean, we put them on MFA today, so they all log
Everyone
on.
already has an email account and a login and
Correct,
all that for our
correct.
systems.
And you guys probably been doing it for years. It's really not that hard. Yeah, you just sign on and log your hours. But the big benefit is there's no no confusion. No, I mean the timesheet walks you through it instead of me finding an error and going back to the employee and correcting it and then going back. So.
Well, and all the manual work that
Yeah.
Deb and Tristan have to do to add the shift premium and the cell phone allowance and all those other sort of things. They probe Tyler pretty hard on that, and that stuff can all be handled automatically. Today, it's all done manual.
Okay, well, that's quite a lot of deal there. I knew it'd take a year, but you knew that too, so.
And I appreciate it because I mean we're gonna run into a few roadblocks. It's just gonna happen, but we're gonna move past them and it'll be fine. I think this is phase 1 of growing the city, and this is the backbone of all our workers here at City Hall and else. So I think I know it's a little bit of sticker shock, but we kind of budgeted and planned for this. So I don't see a lot of issues with improving the systems we're running on so that we can continue to be more data driven city.
Do you know what all their software is developed in? What tools they use?
It's a long list, and it varies. They've grown in through acquisition in a lot of ways. So they list in the RFP all the technology that's been used, but it varies from module to module. So they're moving to a web-based client, so that's all going to be web development technology. The client that's installed on the desktop is primarily .NET, but they talked about having some C++, some Delphi, and a bunch of other things that are included in some of their older clients and so forth.
Okay. I ask because somebody's got to support all these modules, and just because it's on the web doesn't mean they couldn't be using COBOL or some old technology. I've seen COBOL web apps. So.
Right. Yeah. My first job was in COBOL, so I know. But Yeah, all their new development, they said, is going into their web-based client.
And back to the web could be in COBOL, and all the COBOL programmers are going to be in the nursing homes in another few years. So
Yeah,
that's the joke.
I can-
There's very few new COBOL programmers, and some
Right.
other languages also.
Is there anything as you guys went through the demos where you saw, wow, GWorks really did this better? We wish, that they had this capability that GWorks has. Are you concerned about any capability that you'll give up?
Not one. I mean, there's no spell check on noting an account, stuff like that. Like it's going from a DOS word processor to Microsoft Word. I mean, are you gonna miss the green and black?
I hope it doesn't spell check my name.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's things like the lists that they have to go through. They're not alphabetized, that you can't like type and get it to scroll down. You literally have to scroll screen by screen by screen when you go through there. It's not developed for multi-user. It's a single executable sitting on a shared file folder. So when I say it's on a server, I mean, it's just a shared file folder. Everybody's running the same executable. Best I can tell, it's not even using any database technology. It's using flat files. So
Hopefully that helps with data conversion.
so it's really, really old stuff.
We've talked about the website needing to be updated. When we look at the rec module, is that all included in the price? That new interface you see there's not going to be website formatting that's going to be additional cost?
No, that's built in. I mean, there's money in there for the professional services to brand it so that it looks like the rest of the website. So we move from one area to another. You as an end user don't know.
The
It
city's
still looks
website
like
will
it's-
still be different from this solution, right? The city website will not be redone as part of this. The ERP solution will have a plugin on the website or some way of looking like it's part of the website, but remaining separate.
Yes.
Correct.
In 2024, we are approaching a new website redesign that's just included in our contract. So this could be a good year as we're going through this process to be able to kind of reevaluate that and how those two would work together.
Okay.
Ted, you put a number to how many hours of labor you're gonna save from this document?
Boy, and I just wrote that in the staff report, measurable and unmeasurable benefits. And I think it's more future hours we're going to save, meaning as we grow, our current workforce is going to be more productive. We don't have to keep adding workforce and that's kind of what I firsthand went through. Is we used to be able to do it with a clerk, two clerks, and one was sick. Oh, well. Now, if we need three, and if one's sick, you're kind of struggling to keep up because of all the new customers. I mean, I think we've reported over 700 new customers in July alone, and it's just in the the transfer of the residents moving in and out, and move-ins and outs continue to rise as we get bigger, and it's just more questions. So yeah, I mean, man hours I can calculate, we'll save, 20 to 30 minutes a day of Princess's time not closing out. But then we utilize her in a different area that she's more productive in. But I would say the biggest time saving is not having to hire that extra employee 3 years down the road. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. I like to go the long way around the answer.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Brian. All this
Yeah.
started on special assessment question that came in my office, and he's like, "What are you working on right now?" It's like an RFP for a new ERP system. And he said, "You know what? I got some ideas for that." And I said, "Let's meet." So it's been a good relationship, and he's done an amazing job with some of the technical and even just the practical knowledge of how organizations work. So I really appreciate your efforts, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else we need to discuss this evening? If not, I'll call it an evening. Everybody will see you next Tuesday. Thank you.